VA hospital and the
Oh,
nursing
okay.
home, and
So you're crocheting,
I crochet all year.
and then you donate.
And then it gets donated.
So
Yeah.
people donate the yarn to you, or
Yep.
give you the, and then you do this and
Yeah.
farm it back out,
Yeah.
so to
I love
speak.
the silly stegosaurus and the
Oh,
sad
yeah,
puppy
yeah.
on the table there.
Uh-huh.
They're the last two I finished.
Uh-huh. Great. Okay, so this is going. It's no big deal where we start or stop. And I just want to, yeah, I think this is great. So you can see yourself.
Yeah, one of the neighbors
Yeah.
died a few years back.
Oh, really?
She had her entire house. It was much smaller than mine, one of the little ones. But her whole house was floor to ceiling with books.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't even see her piano. It was
Wow.
totally covered.
Mm-hmm.
And her brother and sister needed to get the house ready to sell, and didn't know what they were going to do, so I had room in my garage. So they just loaded them all up and brought them over to my garage.
So they're sitting there now.
So I've donated tons and tons of them, but there's still tons out there. And there's, all sorts of books on gardening and house plants and nursing and every subject imaginable is still there. So if you want to see if there's anything out there you can use, you're welcome.
Okay, yeah. I'll certainly, I'm happy to take a look. So the way that we've been doing these is just to ask you when you got here, and maybe a little bit about where, how you got here, to this particular spot, to this neighborhood in general, and then just kind of moving along from there.
Okay. However you want to work this.
We could also, if we can break this up into more than one too, if that's something that is better for you. But so just kind of going back to the year that you came into this particular geographical area.
Okay. Probably a sales call, but we'll find out. Hello. Well, goodbye. One of those recorded message things, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so, let's see, you've got it, you want me to just start talking, or? You want to ask the questions?
What this, I mean, it's up to you what you want to,
you're in charge.
Okay. I'm here to...
You do your thing.
That's a good question.
And tell me what you want me to do and when.
Right. I'm here, what I'm doing is really listening to you. It's just for me, it's just an exercise in listening. So whatever you feel is relevant, and in terms of like your story here and the story, so you'll be thinking of your story and how other things that have happened here are part of that story too.
Okay.
So I'm thinking of when you first became a resident of the area.
Okay. All right. Well, I moved to Denver from the Oklahoma Panhandle.
Oh, yeah.
In July of 1949. Actually, I moved to Denver in January, and I had a 2-year-old son. And my first home was a rental over on Perry Street, on the west side of town. And I had, my second son was born in April, and I started looking for a house to buy. Found this one on the east side.
Oh, okay, this one.
And it in July of 1949, which happened to be the same month and year that the Apple Tree Shanty opened down here at Exanthia and Colfax. But this location appealed to me as I'd grown up on the farm and came from a small town. This was like living in the country with all the advantages of the city. As this was the last house, so nothing between myself here at 1220 and Lowry Air Force Base at 11th Avenue. That was all empty on this side of the street. There were houses across the street, but nothing between myself and Lowry Air Force Base on the east side of the street. And Westerly Creek was running open and free, nice stream running right behind the house, coming from the dam on Lowry and right along behind. And there was nothing on the east side from my backyard, nothing to the east until you topped the hill at Yosemite over into the old original Aurora. So I was right on the very outskirts of Denver, with all the advantages of city schools and library and everything.
Right.
So eventually I had 2 more sons, and they went to school in the area. They started kindergarten at what is now the Stanley British Primary. At that time it was called the Montclair Annex. And so they started kindergarten and first grade there. And then they went to the new Montclair on Newport for the rest of grade school. So that was the reason I stayed. I liked it here, and enjoyed being here. Most of my neighbors were either military or like myself had come from rural areas in Kansas and Nebraska. We had, so it was a combination, which made it a small, kind of a small town within a city, with all the advantages of a small town in that you knew your neighbors and relied on each other without the invasiveness of most small towns. So we had different neighbor ladies that babysat the kids. Because I always worked.
Oh, really?
And
what did you do?
I've been a secretary and a bookkeeper. Started out, I had my first job when I was a senior in high school at 16. And
oh, you were senior at 16?
Yeah. Yeah, I graduated it when I was 16. And went from there to business college in Hutchinson, Kansas. And then after we moved to here, I went to the University of Denver to their business section, which was downtown. The law school and the business division of DU was downtown Denver at that time. So I went to night school along with it was mostly veterans at that time in the early 50s. mostly WW2 vets going on the GI Bill. So most of the night students were adults with families. And, but among the places that I worked for Fairfield and Woods, one of our large law firms downtown. Was working for them when Eisenhower was president, and his wife, the Mamie Dowd Eisenhower, her family, the law firm Fairfield and Woods, was attorney for the Dowd family. So we had a little suite set aside for Ike, and I worked for Frontier Airlines when its very first merger was formed and became Frontier Airlines. So that was an interesting job, and my kids always came first, so I'd always guarantee to stay a year in order to repay the training that I went through. But I think the longest I ever stayed, except for working for my son at the tail end of things, was 4 years for Shell Chemical on the Arsenal. But I worked out at Buckley Field for American Machine and Foundry when the Titan missile silos were being put in. And worked there on that project, and worked part-time for various attorneys all over the city. And they got involved with the Neighborhood Association when it was formed in 1972. And I've been involved in that ever since.
You have, since the beginning. So you were on the board and...
yeah, I've been on the board, past president, newsletter editor, you name it. And we had an organization, other organizations that I was involved with as part of IMNA was INC, the Inter-Neighborhood Co-op. I was on their board when it was first organized. Then with the closure of Lowry, a group referred to as UNO, United Neighborhoods Organization, was formed, and that was composed of all of the neighborhood organizations surrounding Lowry on both the Denver and Aurora side, and I was treasurer of that for a while, which is where Mary Beth Sussman and I became acquainted. Because she was one of the young people that lived on 6th Avenue and was involved. So Mary Beth and I go way back.
Okay, yeah.
You know, that's... I don't know. One thing people ask frequently is, where did we shop in this part of town?
Right.
And, of course, we shopped in the old original downtown Aurora, which was a typical small town. There was all of your local stores, J.C. Penney's and Jocelyn's and barber shops and beauty shops and furniture store and just anything you wanted was there. We had grocery stores that were within walking distance, so you could send kids to the store to get a loaf of bread or what have you. There's a restaurant now on the northwest corner of Colfax and Exanthia. There was a motel there when I bought this house, and that's where I stayed after we signed the contract, while I was waiting for possession of the house.
Okay.
Was in that motel. And of course Colfax was, which it was and still is, Highway 40, was your main road coming through Denver to the mountains. Everybody came right down Colfax and clear through town.
Right.
Before the interstates. And of course that's why there's so many motels all along Colfax. And at that time they were wonderful, beautiful motels. And used heavily by tourists.
Sure.
Especially at stock show time. Stock show time they were always full. But once the interstate came through and they started building hotels and motels along the highway, why, that pulled people off of Colfax, and that all went downhill.
Started to change, yeah.
The apartments behind me here on Yosemite and Xenia, those were all built when during the period that the Titan missiles were being installed, as the developers for some reason thought there would be permanent parties stationed to maintain the missile silos, and of course there weren't. So they were full with construction crews, but as soon as the project was completed, the construction crews moved out, and like the motels on Colfax, why, they fell on hard times, and their residents went downhill.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
The block between Ulster and Uinta was the main kind of a neighborhood shopping area, if you will. Stokes Drug Store was there, and of course, in those days, why, your pharmacies delivered, and that was a neighborhood drug store. Statewide Lock and Key was there. Scott Kohler and his wife still have Statewide, and they built and moved into a new facility. But in 1949, his father had it. So Statewide Lock and Key is the second generation business in the neighborhood. And there was a barber shop. Hyzon's was a restaurant that was in that area. Their sign stayed up as a historical deal for quite some time in that block. I think it's gone now. The kettle for the apple tree shanty is still there, but it's been painted white instead of red. So I don't know. Now, questions.
Well, I guess since you were involved with the board and sort of the kind of governing organization around here in some way, what kinds of things did you work on over time, over the years?
Well, the reason it was formed is where the Garden Court apartments are. There was that, and then the apartments between the Garden Court apartments and Verbena Park was also part of that complex, and that was the Kensington. And that was the first development. That area had at one time had off-base housing located there. That housing was closed down after World War II, and the property was sold. that entire area from Verbena to Syracuse was all one plot. From 11th to 12th and Verbena to Syracuse had all been Lowry housing, off-base housing. The developers in the city intended to, for the residents on the north side of 11th and the west side of Syracuse to be taxed to help pay for the sidewalks around it. And we felt like that should be developer expense. So that was when the organization was founded.
I see, right, around that
to
issue.
protest that. I'm sure that's in the history that that I've already provided. And so originally it was just this side of Colfax. And as time went on and other things came up, we expanded over to Montview. But, there's, we've had drainage problems and flooding problems in various locations on both sides of Colfax. So we've been involved in that. Been a member of INC and participated in various projects of theirs. One of the major things that's been an ongoing thing that never ends is the motel situation on Colfax. We've worked with Historic Montclair on, I think it was the Niagara was one that we worked with Historic Montclair on. That's what, actually our major problem with prostitutes and drugs started out here when, as that all used to be in downtown on Larimer Street. Larimer was our red light district.
Yeah, the red light district, yeah.
And when that was renovated and became Lodo and high society, those people all came out here on East Colfax into our motels.
Right. Okay. What do you remember what year that was?
I do not remember what year.
Maybe it was 80s,
The
90s?
past 60 years kind of all run together.
They're running together, okay.
Sorry. I do have something here. I have my resume down here that we could pinpoint a few dates from.
Nice, yeah, that's a great idea.
If we want the actual dates.
Yeah.
But, so that's been an ongoing thing. We've, RNOs are notified when liquor licenses are are requested. So it's been a bad habit to check out the owners and their past history if they have one, and find out how the neighbors feel about it, whether it's going to be indirect competition to an existing liquor store. One of the most interesting liquor licenses, I think, was the DAV here at Yosemite in Colfax. It's on this side, in the Denver side, but it's the Aurora DAV chapter.
Okay.
They had a fire in what was a kind of a meeting room, and so they decided, oh, it'd be kind of cool. They were going to put in a non-profit liquor store.
Okay. I haven't heard of those.
So again, I'd have to go into the files for dates on these things. But that was one that we seriously protested for a number of reasons. First of all, there were 3 or 4 other liquor stores within a range of 4 or 5 blocks. That didn't need the competition, particularly a nonprofit. And of course they were thinking of using disabled vets to operate it. With our problems with prostitution and crime, we did not feel that a disabled vet should be exposed to a situation in a liquor store that might be hazardous to his health. So we protested. By the time we got to the actual hearing, there was a letter had been received from the national headquarters of the DAV saying that no, this would not be allowed. So that was one of the more interesting ones. But Mr. T's, which is now a problem, that was a questionable one, even allowing them to get a liquor license from day one. So that one has been a problem from the day it first opened. That's nothing new. Then we had a period when we still have problems with gangs and graffiti, but there was a period of several years that it was very, very severe, and we partnered with Park Hill on getting rid of that problem. And
did that reach down here to your immediate area?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha. Oh, yeah.
How did you react to that? How did you respond, just day to day?
Well, we just worked with the police, and we formed an organization called RADAC. Actually, it was formed in Aurora, and then we formed a branch on our side, Residents Against Drugs and Crime. My little green hat still hangs in the closet. And we partnered with the Guardian Angels. And the Guardian Angels came out once a week, and we walked together on different parts of the neighborhood, along Colfax and back into the neighborhood, which was one way of showing a presence, which was helpful. And if the police were going to do a raid or something, why, they would let us know so that we stayed out of their road. And so that worked. And at one point, one of the meetings I went to with Park Hill, why, one of them stood up and made the statement, "By God, if we can get Stapleton closed, we ought to be able to deal with the gangs." Because they had succeeded in getting Stapleton closed by that time.
The airport?
Yeah. Which I will always miss, and have never been to the... Well, I've been to the postal facility of the new one. But
I've never been to DIA.
The DIA, and it's turned out to be fine, but those of us that were used to having it nearby, well, you miss it. But the city has far outgrown this small cow town that it was when I came here.
Was it noisy, the airport right here?
Well, it's something people would ask me that when the kids were little. Because when I bought this house, they were not only flying out of Stapleton, they were flying out of Lowry, and they were flying out of Buckley. And all of them came over here.
Over here.
The windows rattled. And yes, it was noisy. But the kids didn't even notice it, because, they'd heard it from the day they were born. And you got used to it. It was just, And I'd always say, somebody, "Well, aren't you worried about one of them crashing? If they get off of the ground, they're going to be past my house before they go down."
It's pretty safe over here.
Yeah.
That's great. So, yeah, I mean, I mean, and if anything else comes into your mind about things you worked on with the neighborhood association, because I mean, it seems
Well,
pretty uncommon. Your pretty intense, involvement in neighborhood activity. So that's great, and it's great to have that as part of the interview.
the routine daily things like license approvals and
Yeah.
monitoring businesses and that sort of thing. Uh,
Yeah.
and resolving some issues. Here a while back, the veterinary clinic on Tamarack.
Yeah, it's right across the street from where we are.
Oh, okay, yeah. And I don't remember whether somebody complained or whether a city inspector. Anyway, somewhere or another, the city decided that they shouldn't be allowed to use their parking lot on the north side of the building. That was intrusive in the code of something or another. And so we went to bat for them on that. And after all, that had been their parking lot ever since the building was built, for God's sake.
Right.
Duh! Why all of a sudden is it a problem? If nothing else, it ought to be grandfathered in.
Yeah.
So, so that's, we also went to bat for people in the neighborhood, both families and businesses. If they were having a problem and needed assistance, why, we worked with them in that manner. And it just, the picnic shelter that was recently torn down in Verbena Park, that was, there was a mayor's something or another kind of grant deal.
Right.
That we were able to get to put the shelter up, and the city put in the foundation and and poured the floor and furnished the materials, and we actually built the shelter with volunteer labor, and enjoyed it for many long years.
Yeah.
And as long as someone in the neighborhood kept an eye on it and let the city know when it needed paint or shingles, it was maintained. Somewhere along the line in the recent years, somebody got complacent, or somebody in the new officers didn't realize that they needed to be keeping an eye on it, and it was let fall into very severe disrepair. And I understand they've been having some problems. Of course, the trees got bigger and made more shade and more shelter, and I guess they were having problems with people meeting back in there and doing drug deals and stuff. So it is now gone.
Right. Didn't they just have a big picnic over there? Though? Yeah.
Yes, the picnic was a week ago last Saturday.
Yeah. So it's.
I understand there were 35 or 40 that showed up for that.
Right. And is there a new structure there now, or I just missed
No, I think what they're using now, I think they rent a portable shelter now.
For events.
No, they don't plan on putting up a new structure.
Yeah.
But I think what they're doing is renting one of the portable canopy type.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, there have clearly been a lot of changes that have happened here over the time you've been here, and I'm just wondering, you kind of characterized that to in some ways, but whether you could say more about how it felt to live here when you first got here, which was you were finding something from Oklahoma here in some way, like a kind of more of a country or small town feel, and so over time that has pretty much disappeared.
Actually, in our little section
right here,
from 14th to 11th. Believe it or not, we have pretty well managed to maintain that small town community.
Yeah.
At one time, we talked about and started to form a neighborhood watch group. And one of the neighbors down the street here had the sign up at his house.
Okay.
And I walked in, and he was sitting at his dining room table in a nook like that with a gun laying on the table, which kind of shook me up a bit. But we got as far with that as getting to the point where you had to identify all of your property and turn the list in.
Okay.
That never got done. But we did get the list of the names and all the phone numbers and all of that. We got that done and exchanged all that.
Yeah.
And up until, I would say, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I maintained that list. Whenever somebody would move out or change property, I'd go and call on them and exchange information. Younger people, however, they don't exchange all of the information, but the younger people in the neighborhood still manage to go and welcome new visitors. Real proud of our little block.
Great.
And there are certain sections of the neighborhood that still do this, but it's not as universal
as it was. How much? What I mean,
as it was.
If it was 100% like that, what do you think it is now?
It was almost that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it would be what, 60% or?
I have no idea now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It seems like property values and residents and stuff. Seems like there's about a 10-year turnaround that you see, pretty much over 10 years that the values will go up and down, and people move out and move in.
So you find that people are kind of staying around for about a decade.
And a lot of us. I have it across the street, Jason. His parents bought that house when he was a baby. His daughter just graduated from high school.
Okay.
So I watched him grow up, and I watched his daughter grow up.
That's great.
Maybe I'll get a chance to
his
watch his grandkids at least start to grow up. Who knows? But as I have, well, just as an example, folks that come to help me. Patrick Kerwin lives in the 1900 block of Exanthia. We both have a P.O. box. I unlock my door about 8 o'clock in the morning and lock it about 5. Patrick will rap like you did. If I don't say come in, he opens it, reaches in and gets that Broncos key ring.
Yeah.
And picks up my mail when he gets his at the post office. When he comes back, he'll rap, and if I don't answer, he puts the key back and puts my mail here on the table.
Great.
And I'll find it when I wake up. And if I'm awake while he comes in and we chat and visit. Brian on that side used to work at Starbucks.
Okay.
Still has a friend that works there. He keeps me provided with Starbucks coffee. At the end of the day, they have to toss it.
Yeah.
They can't sell it the next day. So when I run low on coffee, hey, Brian, and a pound of coffee will magically appear. And he waters. I have grapevines along the fence between. So when he waters his yard, he waters my grapevines.
How old is he? He's...
Oh, I don't know.
His 20s?
Probably about your age.
Okay.
he and Cindy, they're not a couple or anything. Cindy owns the house, young lady, and her job took her overseas for a year or two, and he leased the house while she was gone. They're both single. When she came back, it seemed practical, and they enjoyed each other. So he stayed on as a roommate. So they share the expenses, and she owns the house. They both live there, but it's not a romantic situation. It's just, practical.
Practical.
And they frequently have other young folks that go and that they both know that go and come. Dave on this side helps with whatever. My lot line goes down the middle of the driveway, and so he helps. Jason works at Albertsons.
Okay.
So if I need a loaf of bread or quart of milk, I just send Jason a text, and he brings it home when he comes home from work.
Nice.
And when they took our dumpsters away, then how am I going to get my trash cans out? So Dave took them out for a while, and now Brent down on the corner at 1295, he comes up and puts my trash cans out and brings them back. Well, sometimes Dave brings them back.
Yeah.
So, and there's half a dozen others in the neighborhood. That if you need anything, just call. And
yeah, that's great.
Carol down on the corner. I don't know whether I still am. I used to be on her, as they have burglar alarm. And when I was younger, I was their emergency contact for if their burglar alarm was tripped. But so we still have a plumber that lives in the block. My oldest son lived in the block for a while when they first moved to Denver.
Okay.
When he first got married. And
when was that?
Well, that was about 35, 40 years ago.
Okay.
He'll be 70 in February. So.
And how long did he stay?
Let's see. They stayed until she was pregnant with their second child, and so I don't know. They were probably there 6-7 years, something like that.
And what does he do? What did he do?
He was an auto mechanic at the time, and then he became a bus mechanic at RTD, and now he is in the operations department and handles the budget
Okay.
for RTD.
Still working?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'll be there.
Yeah, one of my sons is is an attorney. And he served on our crime committee when it was at the peak, as we were working with the district attorney and the city attorney and the judges and city council and everybody under the sun there for a while. And he and Peter Meir is another attorney that was on our crime committee, and Peter is still involved with this FACS organization. Not sure where Peter lives, but he's still involved in the FACS partnership.
You had 2 kids?
4.
4.
4 boys.
4. Yeah.
Yeah, the youngest one is in the body shop portion of RTD, and next to the oldest is an artist. I've got his artwork all over the house. He and his wife both are artists, and they're in Florida.
They're in Florida. So visual artists. Yeah.
Yeah, he does murals and sculptures and you name it, he does it. He and his wife both. She's illustrated children's books and.
Wow. This one has
That's mine.
Your name
Yeah.
on it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Columbine in the corner is mine. Oh yeah, my paintings are all over the house.
Oh, okay. So are you still painting at all, or?
I haven't done anything here lately. I've about as far as much as I've done recently is just to illustrate greeting cards.
Oh, you have.
I keep meaning to get back on the
Yeah.
and set the easel up, but I just don't quite get around to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Getting
So.
lazy in my old age.
Oh, sure. So have you been doing that kind of thing all the time, or is that something that you took up?
I was about 40 when I started doing that.
Uh-huh.
About 1965.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. So you must have a lot of pieces that you've created over time.
I remarried in 64 and moved to Arvada.
Okay.
We started a business, electro-estimating service,
Yeah.
and did electrical estimates for contractors.
Okay.
And actually our business was from coast to coast. My husband was an electrician and an electrical engineer, and so we had offices in Wheat Ridge on West 38th,
Yeah.
and Burl Went, who did that painting up there over the TV, had her studio next to our office, and we got acquainted, and she saw a paint by number that I had done, and was kind of impressed with it, and insisted I take her classes. So she's the one that got me started.
Great, back then, yeah. So you were here, and then you moved out.
I've lived all over the metropolitan area over the years.
And you came back.
One of my husbands and I did some subdividing out on Tower Road, east of town, and that was in the 50s. And there for a while we lived in one of the show houses on site, so that we had an office on the building site.
Yeah.
We lived there for a while. Lived in what is now Commerce City. It was Derby, unincorporated Derby at the time, and that was when I was working at Shell Chemical on the Arsenal.
Okay.
And we were living over there close to the west entrance to the Arsenal. And even lived in a little house out in the country out by Bar Lake, close to Brighton, for a year at one point in time. But I always kept my house here.
Okay. So you owned this, and
I've owned it since 1949.
so you rented it out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And of course, the base was active, and it was a three-month school basically. So frequently, the non-coms their wives would want to come out and see the country, and of course, non-coms, military didn't pay expenses, and so when the kids were little, sometimes a couple would come and stay with me and get room and board in exchange for babysitting.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I wasn't living here, why, they'd rent the house, and one family would move out and another one would move in, and I'd just get a check from somebody different the next month.
Okay.
So it was mostly rented to military over most of the years.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I remember you talked about this in the thing that you had written up a little bit, is that you were getting checks from people, and then it would come from somebody else, and and things. Which is so you had this connection, but then you were also kind of moving around the city, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
So how overall when did you really officially come back here?
That was in the 70s.
Okay.
We sold the house. When we remarried, my husband's house in Arvada was practically new, but when there was a flood that floated some houses down the stream in Inglewood, it turned out that the house that he had bought in Arvada was sitting on an underground stream, and every time we had a downpour, we had water in the basement.
Okay. Yeah.
So we sold it fairly quickly, and actually, he didn't want to move into mine because mine was an old beat-up house, and he liked things nice and shiny.
Okay.
So we bought a mobile home, and moved that around for a while.
Oh, you did.
So, but somewhere in the 70s, we moved our office to Aurora. We had an office in the 1400 block of Florence. It was our last office other than here at home, and moved back into the house in the early 70s. And my son Steve, that's an attorney, he and his wife lived here they lived here for a few years while he was in law school, until he finished law school and they bought their first house. So.
Right. So your one son lived over here in a separate house for a little while. And
that was my oldest son.
Yeah, and then you were here at that time too. And
actually I was here at that time. Yeah.
So.
It was actually the lady that we bought that from she was in her 90s like I am now, and her son was involved in the oil industry, and he was actually a Canadian citizen. But the house was set up in such a way that when she passed, it was immediately his. So I went down and I talked to him, and I told well, you may not want to discuss this right now, but in case you need to get back to your business and want to do a fast deal, my son and his wife like the house, and they would like to get out of an apartment, and so I said, if you want to make a fast deal and we can agree on a mutually satisfactory attorney to handle it for both of us, why, let's just do this. So we did.
You did, yeah.
We hired an attorney that I knew in Aurora, and he just took care of the whole thing for us. And,
great.
And her son was able to go on back to Canada.
Nice. Interesting.
I'm not known for doing things in a conventional manner.
Good. Neither am I, as you might be able to tell. So, if there's one thing that you would say that really over the years has characterized any changes or transformations here, what would you say that might be? How would you say, okay, this is East Montclair, or this is the East Colfax neighborhood?
Well, other than the things that have had affected the entire country over the years, of which there have been many of those, like integration, I think. I really think that the most that the effect that the interstates have had has created the most dramatic changes.
So when 70 came in,
When I-70 came in, it changed the entire structure of the neighborhood. Because we lost our local businesses, we lost our local motels,
right?
And the destruction of I-70, and almost simultaneously came the malls, the big
Right.
shopping malls.
Yeah, sure.
Those two things came close enough together that the combined impact of shopping malls and interstate highways
And some people
just
said
had a devastating effect on the Colfax Strip.
And then wasn't the closing of the Stapleton Airport and I guess the closing of the base?
Neither of those had much effect on the neighborhood.
Okay.
They really didn't. We had representatives on the council on both, and actually we were able to get most of the things that we requested. As the big things that we fought for. Big thing on Stapleton was the maintenance of the swamp, of the open lands and the swamps and that sort of thing. And that was accomplished. They've got the horse academy for the kids. You know, they have an awful lot of open space and nonprofit areas on Stapleton. The one hangar that we wanted retained is historic. That has been retained, and it's a church now, but it was retained.
So you were part of that decision?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We were less successful on Lowry than we were on Stapleton, but we still got a lot. We're still able to get them to maintain quite a bit of open space on Lowry. Not as much as we would have liked. And the 6th Avenue group got what they wanted. We would have liked to have seen 6th Avenue continue to go straight through. People that lived on 6th Avenue did not want that because they were afraid of being more heavy traffic on 6th.
Yeah.
So we wound up with all those stupid roundabouts that I hate.
Yep.
But, which makes it's difficult to get around on Lowry and find things. Where Stapleton has done a better job of maintaining the same streets and configuration as we have, so it's easier to find an address on Stapleton.
Right. I want to mention too that so you're talking about larger issues, national issues that impacted things that are going on here, and integration being one of them. I mean, how do you
Can we take a break?
Oh yeah.
And can I get you to get me a bottle of water out? Whatever purpose, why? Send them around.
I will. Yeah. You gave away a bunch of the books.
Oh
though.
yeah, I had.
Yeah.
They've gone to.
Yeah.
Oh, I have one lady came in and took a station wagon load out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of our state correctional institutes is out north
Mm-hmm.
of town. She took some for there, and some for her city library, and some for her school library. And I don't even remember what town she was from now.
Okay.
But
Just wanted a certain amount, though. Didn't want to take them all.
yeah, but I found out from her the jails and penitentiaries,
Uh-huh.
they only take soft covers,
Oh, okay.
no hard covers.
Yeah.
You know, the schools like hard covers.
Uh-huh. All right, yeah. So this is going again.
Okay.
And we were going to talk about integration, and
Oh,
you said that
okay.
you broke the color line.
Yeah.
How did
Well-
all that come about?
This was in '64
Mm-hmm.
when I remarried and moved to Arvada.
Yeah.
And the second family that I rented to was Sergeant Smith and his family from the base.
Mm-hmm.
They had 5 children,
Mm-hmm.
and they were black.
Uh-huh.
And initial reaction, because my oldest son was a senior in high school, so he came back to this part of town all the time for his buddies. And so he'd hear rumbles at the service station. That was terrible, terrible, terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you're saying that the neighborhood was
the
pretty much all
neighborhood
white.
was not,
Yeah.
they were not ready for a black family.
Uh-huh.
And
Did you meet with them
they even
personally?
had, huh?
Did you meet with the family who rented personally, or did?
No, I didn't. No. I always, when it was a new tenant coming from the base,
Yeah.
I just notified the housing authority on base
Mm-hmm.
that the house was available.
Yeah.
And I took their recommendation.
Okay. Oh, okay. So
If the housing authority sent them, you
they
know,
go in.
and and the way my house is laid out, that they had 5 kids.
Uh-huh.
Finding a house to rent with 5 children is not an easy task at
Sure.
any age,
Right. Yeah.
you know. And the way my house is laid out, why, it could be used with 3 or 4 bedrooms, you know, depending on how you use it. Why, but it would work for that many. But so I even had a few threatening phone calls.
Oh, you did.
Oh yeah, but
Did you talk to those?
by the time they moved,
Uh-huh.
no, I didn't just talk to anybody about it. You know, it was. They were here. They were paying their rent, and you know, so
Yeah.
I didn't care what anybody else thought. But by the time they moved,
Yeah.
why, the same people that had complained were apologizing.
Mhm. Okay.
And, your yards never looked as nice, and those are the cleanest, sweetest kids, and so forth.
Mhm.
The saddest part was, and this illustrates how the times have changed since then, is they really needed for her to work.
Mhm. Okay.
As
The money.
you know, they had his kids and her kids and our
Uh-huh.
kids,
Uh-huh.
and she got a job, but she couldn't find anyone that would babysit the children.
Oh. Mhm.
No one. This was a white neighborhood.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
They would not babysit a black child.
Mhm.
So she had to quit her job.
Uh-huh.
They did get behind on the rent.
I see.
And what they were, and at this point I did call, and I talked to his CO to find out whether it was definitely a hardship case or whether they were deadbeats. And it was a hardship case. what they wound up doing, he took an overseas assignment in England, and she went home to her family in Kansas City. And I had started paying, I was paying their utilities and everything. I don't remember now how much they owed.
Yeah.
But $5 or $10 at a time, they sent me every single penny they owed me when they left.
Wow.
And they really, the way they took care of the yard and their children, and just had a huge impact on the entire neighborhood as to
Making an impression.
they really, you know, they just really made a wonderful impression as to what it was like to have a black family move in.
Right. Yeah. So they didn't run into any trouble themselves
No,
here.
they
It was just the
didn't have it.
opposite.
Yeah.
But they couldn't find babysitting though, so they didn't have a community that they could rely on.
Yeah. It was just, and of course, they were just during this time they were beginning to move into Park Hill, and people were worried worried about their property values going down and all that sort of thing. And I don't remember, not too long after that, because at that time we had mandatory housing, but actually the mandatory housing started in the 50s. But then the integrated busing started, and that was at George Washington. And of course the big problem there, which nobody took into account, was not that you were mixing white and black kids, but you were mixing rich and poor kids. And which we had enough of a problem with that at Hill Junior High, because our kids out on this edge, we were the poor folks. The ones in closer to the school were what I call the cashmere sweater class.
Okay.
And that didn't go too well. But then when on a senior high level, when you did the forced integration, and not only blacks and whites, but rich and poor coming from different parts of town, it had absolutely nothing in common. Then you had problems.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And that's when the parents and the teachers, it was horrible. As at East High, you had all nationalities, you had all income levels, and I actually, because I wanted my kids to be exposed to this, I actually moved over onto Steel Street, just a few blocks from East High, for a little over a year, so that my kids could be exposed to this integrated situation, which was wonderful. I had a Mormon family on one side of me, a Catholic welfare family on the other side of me. The Mormon family she was a realtor and they were well-to-do, and the ones on the other Catholic and welfare. But we had an assistant principal at East that was, every kid in that school was treated the same, and they knew that. They knew that it didn't make any difference to him whether they were black, white, or yellow, whether they were rich or poor, that they were going to be treated the same. Same discipline, the same approval, whatever. And there were a lot of rumbles, and there was some gang threats during that period of time too. And the way this assistant principal would handle it, rather than having the police come on campus, he would notify them that he had heard there was going to be a rumble. And the police would set up their cars in a perimeter away from the school, but close enough to move in if it was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And he was fabulous.
Yeah.
Everything went smooth. So they sent him over to GW.
Oh, okay.
Well, in GW, everybody started telling him how to run it.
Mm-hmm.
They took the power away from the administrators of the school.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do this, you got to do that, and so forth. And he almost had a nervous breakdown before the end of the year, and actually took retirement at the end of that year. He was so stressed out trying to deal with all of the added stuff that they put on the teachers. It was disgraceful.
So he was dealing with kind of integrated busing and that kind of an issue.
Yeah. But it wasn't just the kids. He was also dealing with the parents and the school board and everybody outside that was forcing decisions on him.
Sure.
They took the power away from him. He was no longer allowed to deal with each individual child on an individual basis. He was told how he was going to, and that don't work.
Right.
But don't get me started on the school. That's an all-day soapbox.
Okay. All right. I'll keep that in mind. But back to this neighborhood specifically. So you had that one family that came in here, and then how did you see any? I mean, was there another family that came in soon after that, or was it?
It was very, very slow.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very slow.
Yeah.
We have several now. The house across the street from me is Denver Housing Authority.
Okay.
So we've had several black families. There's a black family across there now. We have, and we have I think we have a rather significant gay and lesbian population in our neighborhood now, which we may have always had, but they're more out now and you're more aware of it. As in the I only remember one gay couple and maybe one lesbian couple way back many, many years ago. But people weren't open about it.
Yeah, sure.
40 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, it's great to hear all that. I guess I'm not sure if I have other questions at the moment, but I'll keep thinking about things and.
Okay.
Yeah. What I was going to do with this video is just basically put it on our website where we have a couple other videos and
you can edit it and cut and splice or do
little bits here and there and
Sure.
I'll